What it's like to be a TINE user, an introverted thinker coupled with intuition. Now, all right, so I'm just going to get down to it. TI users will do one thing their entire lives. What this means is they never stop doing the same thing. They will take a very long time to build that idea up, that one single idea up. And this is why, there's a common misconception that TI users are usually lazy. They don't get results. They never get stuff done. That's because they fear that, one, they might not be able to finish the thing that they're doing before they die. Two, they are afraid they might finish it before they die, and then they'll have to live the rest of their lives out not knowing what to do. So sometimes they will come close to actually finishing something and be like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And then yeah, that little action right there, that was also, I guess, TI. And sometimes, like Thanos, he might think, yeah, sure, I can finish it, but is it good for the world? Is it productive? Could there be more destruction of it? So they secretly wish someone would stop them before they could finish. And TI coupled with NE, what's that like? NE users, you might have actually attributed this to TI, but it's actually the NE that does this. NE will remember everything, especially if it's NE with TI. The data banks are going to be so big, and they're going to pick up on all these things, and they're going to be like a nagging wife. They're going to date your inconsistencies on a calendar. So they have a dated calendar of all the screw-ups that you've ever done. And, whenever, let's say, a TE user, a very practical person, would say something like, yeah, this needs to be done like this. Society is making this problem because of this or whatever. And they're doing this argument. And the ENTP would be like, 3 years ago, July 26th in 2018, it was a rainy day, kind of sunny, also a Tuesday, and they're going to tell you exactly how inconsistent your statement then was with your statement now. And that's kind of annoying. Well, that's what I do. I'm the ENTP. Also, I actually have right here in front of me certain things that I have written for when the argument, one time I was I was in the middle of an argument and I was like, I wish I recorded this so that at a later time I could show you the mistake that you've made in this argument, Also, just to compare, we're going to talk about what intuition means when it's extroverted versus when it's introverted. Two very different things. We're also going to talk a little about sensory types, but we're not going to explain TI and FE as much because I think thinking and feeling is easier to understand. It's just sensory and intuition happen inside your mind. So it's like, unless you get it from a person who actually experiences it, you don't know how they think. And once again, Lindsay Johnson Lijo is the best person to explain these things. Before I watched her video on NE versus NI, I didn't actually get this. She uses, objectively, she doesn't criticize. She takes the example in such a way that you can look at it both at the same time. So I'm going to attempt it. She uses plans too. So this is I'm going to say an INTJ and an INTP or ENTP are going to be looking at the same object and having two different conversations at the same time. That's how NE and NI works. They go different ways. They're like two trains passing each other, opposite directions, and they get to different places. So let's say an INTJ and an ENTP are walking down, they've been hiking for a long time, so they're not just walking down. They're hungry and they're looking for food, right? And they see a tree. So when the INTJ spots a tree, let's say it's a mango tree, the INTJ is going to say, look, there are already fruit on these branches. We could eat them and survive. Whereas the ENTP is going to crouch down at the trunk of the tree and be like, oh, look, there's a root system that runs underground. Or let's, for the first statement, he'll say, oh, look, the roots extend underground. By this time, the INTJ's already climbed halfway up. He's on the branch where the fruit is, and he's about to pluck the fruit, and he's gonna be like, "Don't worry about it. Problem solved. I got the fruit." Or use tools to break the fruit down. That is something you can do as well. But let's say he's on the branch. And then the ENTP is going to notice, if you clear all the soil, you're going to see an entire root system that's just as big as the branches. And by this time, the INTJ is biting into the fruit and be like, dude, yeah, you should really try this. This is really awesome. And the ENTP is going to be like, that tree's got roots. This tree's got roots. That the entire forest is linked through the roots. It's like an intercom or an internet. And the INTJ is gonna have finished his fruit and be like, and just walk away. And the INTJ lives because it ate for another day. And the ENTP just dies because the ENTP doesn't do anything. All right, so it was funny in my head, I think. And then, what else is there? Oh yeah, polar function and inferior function. I wanted to talk about those. So let's say I'm going to take a metaphor from Superman. So if you get it, you get it. If you don't, whoosh. Your polar function is like Superman and Ultraman. The way how that works is Superman exists in Earth 1. And Ultraman exists in Earth 3. That is like a mirror version of yourself. So imagine when you're looking at a mirror and you raise what hand is this? This is your left hand. So right now on the screen, I am seeing the left side of my mirror image raise his hand. But if you were with a real person, you would be able to shake their hands because, when you extend your right hand, they would cross with you with the right hand, right? So with a real life person, you could, fight with them or whatever. But in the mirror image, you can't fight the person in the mirror image because when you hit with the left hand, they're going to hit with the hand on that side because their left hand's going to be on the left as well. And because, you have to block with one hand and that's not going to happen. So with Superman and Ultraman, it's going to be they're like nega versions of themselves. They can't exist at the same place. In the comics, literally, because one is made of matter and one is made of antimatter, if they touch each other, they will disintegrate and blow stuff up on a big scale. So what actually happens, and your inferior function is like Lex Luthor or Joker. So if you're Superman, it's your arch enemy. Also, if you're Lex Luthor, it's your arch enemy as well. It could work both ways. So now this is where the Superman analogy ends, because we will talk about some comic book characters that I think are like ENTPs or, ENTPs that could be other comic characters. You get what I mean? All right. So the polar function of TI is FI. And they can't exist at the same place. And the same with TE, actually. That is also another polar version of it. And the inferior function of TI is FE. So we have FE, but we're not as used to using it, or we play around with it. But what having FE does to you is it gives you some sort of empathic skill. Think about ENTPs is they can think, so they exist, but they can't feel for themselves. They can't copy the feelings of other people, which makes them really good at, they could produce a movie or, write literature, come up with stand-up comedy, because they identify the patterns of what input makes people give this output. So what makes people sad? What makes people happy? And what do people do when they're happy? What do people do when they're sad? They can identify that stuff. So they can mimic a person's emotion. But the only kind of actual emotions an FE person, a TI person can have is like they can feel sad about themselves for not being able to say feel sad, or they could feel lonely. That sort of feeling is what it is. So, all right. So, a lot of people think that because they don't have feelings inside them and because they can understand the emotions of others and even use that as they could use that against them as well. I've done it, not gonna lie. It was kind of awesome. It was like playing with clay when you're a little child. You start to like, touch it and you're like, oh, hey, look, I can actually mold it like this. And then you try to do stuff like that. Mm, but people can get hurt when you are irresponsible with those powers. All right. But all right. So sometimes people, notice these overthinkers, these TI users, always in their heads, always burdened with, they got their hands behind their backs and they're walking down with their head held down. So a lot of things, the cogs and the wheels in their heads are always turning around. So a lot of people might wonder if INTPs could be dangerous. Now, they could come up with like a huge plan that's really devastating, but are they actually dangerous? No, that would be the ISTPs or the ESTPs because, you have to have sensor to actually do something. NE users never do stuff, so ENTPs are like really harmless. ENTPs are really harmless because what's the quote? Oh yeah, this is a Barney Stinson quote. I wanted to like put that in there without telling you what it was. No, that would be actually doing something, Marshall. Don't you ever read my blog? As from the Pussum People episode where he makes a video resume for with like made up words and stuff. He says that corporate America wants people who look like they're doing stuff but that never actually do stuff. So that's what an ENTP is like. So an INTJ would be like a black mage or a dragon hunter. Very, flashy and huge chunky armor, but really soft on the inside. Whereas an ENTP is gonna like, charge into battle with a pillow strapped across his chest and with a little dagger knife. They're gonna be like, come at me, bro, come at me, bro, and they're gonna last exactly 2 seconds in that fight. Because they don't plan things out as, like, they lack practicality. They lack practicality. TE is what is practical. So once again, the INTJ, the whole eating the mango thing with the, the roots and the fruits, that thing. INTJs are very result oriented and they will plan stuff out. Like before they start to do something, they would make an risk analysis or whatever analysis needs and whatever. They would decide whether this thing is worth doing, whether it's going to actually be needed or necessary. They would think about that. But the TIs just do what they want to do. So society might not find that useful or functional. So yeah, ENTPs are like one of the least useful people ever. Also, people have this misconception that INTP people are like geeks or nerds, like always on the computer. They're really good at software. And I think they would be able to do like coding and programming and understand virtual simulated worlds. Maybe that's possible. In my case, I'm not interested in programming that much. So I would say an ENTP or an INTP is like a bard as opposed to, because, when you think about tech geeks in Dungeons and Dragons terms, that is more like that is more like what? Mm, I was gonna say, oh, dark mage. Yeah. So like the skill. So there's wisdom and intellect and all these things. So to do dark magic, you have to have more intelligence. So yeah. And also the ISTPs I mentioned earlier. This one I got from Love Who Nathan, and I just fucking love that guy. I could never get enough of him. I could just watch him forever and ever. And sometimes when I'm at interviews or when I'm doing the videos, I kind of channel the way he speaks. Like I've been listening to his videos all the time. So yeah. And according to him, the ISTPs and the ESTPs, he's got two videos. One is where 16 personalities as stereotypes, and the other one is the dark side of ESTP, ISTP. In these, they talk about how the ISTP is very clever at very hands-on. SE is very, so SE coupled with TI, that's dangerous, but well, that could be dangerous potentially because they will actually have results. But the INTP and the ENTP, if they were a villain, they would be more like Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb, where he would build a huge army of robots that could destroy the Earth, but would put the self-destruct button on the foot so that the army takes one step and they're done. And sometimes I think the INTP, ENTP does this on purpose as well, like sabotage themselves because they know that whatever they do is either not going to be useful or going to be the Manhattan bomb, because the person who came up with nuclear physics theory, that person is supposed to be an INTP. So, all right. There's more to this video than, I planned out a whole thing. I had the list down, so I'm probably going to do a second version of this. But I just wanted to do it and finish it because, INTPs never get stuff done. And I'm just training myself to do stuff, whether it's accurate, whether it's clean, whether it's, I just need to put stuff out there because that's something that I'm supposed to do to overcome my weaknesses. Well, thanks for joining me in this rant, whatever. I hope it clears out some of the misconceptions, because once I started getting into the 16 personalities thing and once I saw about the other people, I realized, yeah, you have to get this word out, because the more you realize how other people are, first you realize what you're like. And then your whole glass is going to get shattered and you're going to, lose your footing in reality. And that's going to take a little phase. And once you understand what other people are like and how that's different from you and everything, you start to actually, you get stuff. You're like, now I know why people don't like me when I do this. Or now I remember, I know that people don't like it when I do this, but I never realized why, because they think in a different way. I use too many words. They use less, and they think that using less words is better, which is more functional, of course. But, I explain things because, thoughts for me is I have to think out loud. So that sort of thing is you tend to understand group dynamics and how society works because, man is a social animal. I am not a social animal. Therefore, wait, am I about to make a basic fallacy of invalidity? Yeah. All right. So that's about it for now. I will probably redo this with a better plan.